Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's your friendly neighborhood Chargers fan, the director. How's everybody doing, man? Hey, does everybody else, just like me, wake up in the morning with that itch to talk Chargers football, particularly at this time of the year, right in the summer? We're already past, free agency, the NFL draft. A lot of things have transpired in terms of giving us a preview of what this team could be looking like in September. Now it's time to speculate. Now it's time to ramp up that anticipation and hype for the season. And that's what we're going to be talking about today in today's video. This is what I need to spit out into the universe in my videos as to what I'm excited about for the upcoming season, the 2023 season for your Los Angeles Chargers. Because yes, a lot of things have happened. I would almost say clumped into 2 seasons, right? These last 2 seasons for the Chargers have been uncharacteristic for a lot of different reasons, but it does carry a lot of potential for, I would say, maybe even a deep playoff push in the 2023 season. A lot can go down. So you guys can help me out in the comment section below, like by listing some of your most exciting things that you're hyped about for the 2023 season. It can be a player, a returning player, a new player on the roster, maybe even some coaching changes for the team. It should be a pretty good one, man. Let's all get hyped together and start building up the anticipation to kick off here in September. Now, before we do hit off this video, hit us up with or we should give our sponsor a shout out first. Yes, let's give our sponsor a shout out. Underdog Fantasy. Use code director to match your first deposit up to $100. It's a great way to support the channel and have some fun along the way. Now I'm ready, guys. I need to start jumping into this video. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, man. I'm starting to stumble over myself with anticipation and excitement. Lights, camera, action. My top 10, we'll say top 10, right? My top 10 reasons why I am hyped for the Chargers season in 2023. And you know what? Just throwing it out there, this is being filmed May 17th, so maybe something happens between now and when you're watching this video. Maybe the Chargers go out there and, and trade for one of the best, tight ends in the league. Like Kyle Pitts, Los Angeles Charger. Maybe something like that crazy happens. Maybe not, but till then, this is what the Chargers roster looks like right now, and this is what I'm particularly excited about in the 2023 season as the roster exists presently. So we're going to get into the top 10 reasons why I'm excited. Again, as we follow along, you guys please let me know some of the things that you're hyped about this season. I'm sure I've missed something, and we can all get hyped up together. So at number 10, and this is probably going to be one of the most important ones on this list, even though it's all the way at the bottom, number 10, I still think it's very, very important. It's something that Chargers fans in particular aren't unfamiliar with very many seasons throughout our history, and that's going to be the category of Return of the Fallen. Okay, it's not the first time I've used this title in the history of my channel. That'll tell you how frequently this happens. Return of the Fallen. Reason 10 why I'm hyped for this season. Now, let me start off by saying there's a couple of guys I'm going to exclude from this initial, number 10 because they have their own section coming up later in the video. Instead, I wanted to highlight a couple of guys revolving around their return from injury this season. Because if you're a Chargers fan, man, there's a lot of anticipation that's built up. Then all of a sudden it's dropped out, from underneath you with a horrific injury or something that really takes, the Chargers plans and tosses them out the window. And this last season was certainly no exception. Chargers fans, we had a lot of things working for us on the roster that ultimately did not make it to the end of the season. And some of these players vastly important to the Chargers identity. Now, there's a couple of guys I would say play in the background that certainly have very important roles for the Chargers that, with their absence, did leave a bit of a scar towards the rest of the 2022 season. So the first guy I did want to point out here, as you see on the screen, is Donald Parham, who I do believe could be a significant part of this Chargers offense if he could stay on the field. Now, that's one big thing that you're going to find with guys his size. 6'8", a monster target out there for Justin Herbert. but he is kind of prone to injury. Sometimes with that size and speed, things do happen. It's a contact sport, and unfortunately for Donald Parham, it has limited his availability to the team on the field. Now, this season, we can all hope and pray and cross our fingers that Parham stays on the field more often than not, because again, I do think that he could be maybe like not a featured role on this team, but somebody that could frequently be used in certain situations that will absolutely help the Chargers out, where in previous seasons they may have had a weakness. For one, red zone targets. We need them. We need them in copious amounts, right? The Chargers in the red zone certainly haven't been the best team in the past couple of seasons, and I do believe when Donald Parham's on the field, our at least statistics go up a little bit, right? Our chances at tossing a touchdown to a 6'8" monster beast, in the back of the end zone certainly does go up. And Donald Parham has proven to be very, very good at that. Donald Parham, very excited to see his return. The fast 6'8" tight end. He's going to be an exciting return for this team. The other guys definitely noteworthy that I wanted to mention. Jalen Guyton, who was re-signed late in the season, he'll be making his return. A bit of a crowded wide receiver room all of a sudden. He's going to have to fight for a roster spot with guys like Darius Davis, Quentin Johnston, of course, Josh Palmer already on the depth chart ahead of him. Other guys like Austin Johnson as well. You guys will remember he went down, I would say, in the mid part of the season last year. Very good run defender. The Chargers certainly are going to welcome him back. And then I would say an underrated name as well I wanted to mention, Mark Webb, right? Safety. The Chargers, as of right now, we don't know what's going to happen with the safety position, especially, the Chargers not having signed John Johnson or removing Alohi Gilman. Alohi did play some free safety last season. It's a fact, though, Chargers do have a spot available, and I do believe Mark Webb was one of those guys that the Chargers, and specifically Brandon Staley, were hyping up last season as a guy who could fulfill that need. It's I would say, undrafted free agent that I'm very anticipated to see return from injury this season, all right? Next up, let's move into number 9, right? That was 10. Let's go to 9. Year 2 of the rookies. Year 2 of the rookies. Now, last draft, I would say was pretty successful, right? Of course, you're not going to hit on every draft pick. The Chargers certainly wanted to see more out of JT Woods. Maybe didn't see what they were hoping to see in Isaiah Spiller. But I do believe they hit some slam dunks in the offensive line, right? Zion was absolutely a great, addition to the offensive line at guard. And speaking of guard this season, Jamari Sawyer, what a steal in the 5th round last year. Absolutely crazy to see him step into that role of left tackle and shine for the Chargers during that season. This season, I do believe we're going to see, episode 2, the 2022 rookies strike back, and we're going to see some improvement from a lot of these players. Of course, when you come into the NFL as a rookie, sometimes it takes a year or two to get your bearings about you, and that's kind of when you start to identify who's going to be a long-term addition to this team and maybe who's only going to stay during their 4-year contract and their rookie deal. This year, I do believe there's going to be a couple of guys that stand out, okay? For one, we can already count on our guards, Zion and Sawyer, okay? Both those dudes, again, I don't know if anybody's heard this or if I've mentioned it enough, they've swapped sides, so now you're going to see Zion on the left side and Sawyer on the right side. That's what they played in college. That's what they want to do in the pros. They're going to be awesome this season. I think a lot of us anticipate that. But there's a couple of names I wanted to highlight that I think could take a year 2 jump depending on how the Chargers want to roll out, let's say, their offense and their defense this year. For one, Xander Horvath is going to be a guy I really, really hope gets involved this season, both as a fullback but as a runner. I want to see some Mike Allstott comparisons out there, right? Let's hand him off the ball a little bit more than we saw last season, just as like a running back, right? Like just a big running back, somebody that you can run similarly to Ezekiel Elliott to Tony Pollard. And now that we've got Kellen Moore on the offense as a coordinator, I think that's something that's absolutely possible. But let's not forget about number 28 that's on the screen here either. A lot of people ask me, Director, what is your, I guess, anticipation or vision for Isaiah Spiller going into the 23 season? And there is absolutely a role for him. I do think Isaiah Spiller at some point is going to be the Chargers' RB2. It's just going to take a little while. I see a future where this guy is going to be your kind of hybrid runner / receiver, because that's one big thing we forget that Isaiah Spiller was so good at, or at least anticipating being so good at in the pros, and that was being a receiving back. I do see that being a big part of the Chargers' identity on offense, and I think Spiller has that role going into the future, so long as he can prove that he's willing to work up the depth chart as the Chargers RB2. So again, in the future, I see a nice combination of a featured running back, hopefully Austin Eckler is RB1, maybe a bruising back and a Xander Horvath that's brought in those situations more frequently than he was last season, and then an RB2 like Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller that could work in unison as those guys behind your starter. So again, Chargers running back room right now looks really good. We'll have to wait and see what it looks like next season. The other guys I kind of want to throw in there, sprinkle in there, pepper in there, was Tito and Agbonia, JT Woods, and then Jasir Taylor. I think that guy, flying under the radar a little bit. I think he could have a pretty decent, campaign in 2023. He had some very big flashes last season. Chargers were using him in the nickel a lot. That's a big position for the Chargers defense. And if they trust him with those responsibilities, he's got to have something that they like on defense. So it's Jasir Taylor, keep an eye on him. So with that, nice segue. Let's talk about the secondary a little bit. My number 8 reason I'm hyped about the 2023 season is going to be this man and the secondary. Derwin and the secondary. Now, last season, I would say for the most part, that secondary lived up to expectations. Of course, there were some hiccups and things that we wish were different. Well, that's probably going to be a category we see very soon here. But Derwin, the way that we were hoping that he would operate as that chess piece, right? That guy that you can move across the entirety of the defense, be that disruptor, that guy that really throws off offensive coordinators. I feel like he fulfilled that for the most part. And I feel like, again, coming into this next season, the Chargers have a little bit more under their belt in terms of, how they know they can utilize a Derwin James. And the more that we get to understand the rest of the players in the secondary, the more we know where we can fit Derwin James in terms of as a disruptor. And I think Derwin is absolutely going to shine in that role yet again this season. But I do believe that the surrounding pieces are going to allow him to capitalize on these opportunities a little bit more frequently. Now, again, we're still kind of wondering what's going to happen at the free safety position. But the Chargers, in terms of, let's say, the backup safety, the guy that steps into his role when he's out there moving around, in the box at edge, in the nickel or whatever, I think I like Alohi Gilman a lot for that this season. But the other guys I like a lot right now, Asante Samuel Jr., he's been fantastic playing corner, playing nickel, pretty much wherever you need him. I consider him the Chargers cornerback 1 in this present time, and I think he's definitely living up to expectations, and he's going to get himself an extension next year for sure. The other guy that I'm very excited to see this season as well has been Michael Davis, who a lot of us doubted in the last season because of how difficult it was for him to grasp the new Brandon Staley defense. Had a really bad year that first season, but my goodness, did he bounce back in 2022. He's one of the featured guys on this DB unit, and I do believe that, again, this season, he might be able to prove himself once again into another extension with the Chargers. He's got that length. He's got that speed. He's going to be one of those guys that the Chargers feature versus those faster weapons in the NFL, like a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins receivers week 1. That's going to be an interesting one to witness. So there you have it. Derwin in the secondary. I think the Chargers secondary looks pretty dang good. We got some guys that could flash. Maybe we even some room to improve in terms of the safeties, but it could definitely turn out to be an exciting one for the defense this season, especially with the kind of help they're going to get in terms of pressure. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. At number 7, we're going to talk about draft gems in action, okay? Of course, we're anticipating and excited and hyped about the new rookies coming into the season for the Chargers. But I wanted to highlight a couple of them right off the bat here at number 7 that I do think have a role with the team. Okay, and it doesn't mean that these other guys, past these point aren't going to have a role. Absolutely, they are as backups. But these guys, I would say, it was in the 3rd and 4th round. These guys are certainly going to make an impact this season. That's, of course, Dayan Henley and Darius Davis. Both of these guys, I think, are going to have a role this season, and I do think they have a chance to really show the Chargers some value in terms of where they were drafted this year. Because, again, what they do very, very well, and they're both coming in at a position of need for the Chargers. Now, draft gems. Number 1, let's talk about Henley a little bit. A lot of us are certainly very excited to see what this guy brings to the table. I would say, and this is kind of unfortunate because, of course, Kenneth Murray was a first-round pick. A lot of us view Henley as a Kenneth Murray-type linebacker, maybe a tad bit smaller, but very, very fast, and I would say quite a bit better in coverage. And, of course, as the Chargers have grown these past couple of seasons, as they've tried this experiment with Kenneth Murray in terms of let's turn him into a coverage guy, it really hasn't worked out for them. So instead, they go out there and get a guy that was ranked, I think it was a top 5 coverage linebacker last season by PFF. And it depends on what kind of statistics you looked at. Some even labeled him as the best coverage linebacker in the draft this season. That's going to be something that the Chargers certainly can used this season. And I think you can really take a peek and behind the curtain as to what they want to do at this position with who they decided to bring in via free agency. And we're going to kind of bundle him into this category. Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks is something I'm actually very excited to see mesh with the Chargers this season, because again, the Chargers want to see these linebackers cover. These Chargers linebackers pretty much need to be hybrid safeties at this point, right? They need to have the ability to cover, but also the ability to defend the run. And it's becoming one of the more, I would say, difficult positions on defense in the NFL with what you're asking and how little this position's getting paid. Either way, Henley fits right into that mold. Of course, we've mentioned this a couple of times. That franchise guy did make the comparison of Henley before the draft to Eric Kendricks. Now being able to play with Eric Kendricks, he's going to be able to develop into that player that we hope to see as one of those premium pass coverage sort of linebackers in the NFL that does carry that, boomstick with him as well. So Dan Henley is going to be a fantastic add to this team. I would anticipate him maybe not overtaking Kenneth Murray, within the first 3 or 4 weeks, but you're going to see, I would say, his fair share of snaps, shared with Kenneth Murray throughout that course of time, because I do believe that he fits what they're trying to do on defense way, way better. So the upside's very, very high. We'll have to see how that translates, but I'm super excited to see number 0, the first 0 in Chargers history, I would say, at work there. Now at Darius Davis, this is a player I know a lot of Chargers fans are super excited about. I'm super excited about him, man. I don't think we've had a player like this on the Chargers in a very, very long time. The ex-Bronco, his name eludes me at this point. Holiday, I think, last time we've seen something like this. And I think the Chargers at this point are very excited to roll out with one of the faster wide receivers in the NFL. I think the big question is, how are they going to use him? Right? Because we do have guys on the depth chart that I think are better attuned with their speed to help Justin Herbert in the deep part of the field right now. I think Jalen Guyton, Quentin Johnston, that's a really nice role for them. I think they're going to exceed at that. But where I'm excited to see Darius Davis, for one, is what he was drafted to do. Special teams. This guy had, 6 special teams touchdowns with TCU, which is a huge number. Of course, there are things to be concerned about. He did have his muffing issues in terms of dropping, returns, and that's something that the Chargers are going to have to work on. But that upside is pretty high. The Chargers have not been a very high-scoring special teams organization in a very long time, and Darius Davis carries that upside. The other big thing I'm excited about with Davis is the ability to execute on gadget plays, and that's where I see a majority of his snaps on offense coming in. He's going to be that swing guy. He's going to be that screen guy. He's going to be, those gadgetry plays that the Chargers were trying so desperately to execute with Joe Lombardi, but he does have the burst and, I would say, experience to execute that sort of thing. That is what I'm excited about with Darius Davis. But if we're talking from a pure fans lens perspective, right, and that's exactly what this channel is. We are a fans lens perspective here. I do hope to see Darius Davis involved a little bit more in offense in terms of vertical receiver than a lot of us are anticipating, right? The Chargers wide receiver depth chart is so, I would say, loaded, stacked at this point, that it's hard to believe that he's going to get a large amount of snaps throughout the course of the season. But I think that speed alone, which was clocked as one of the fastest ever recorded in both collegiate and NFL football, that speed alone matched up with Justin Herbert's arm, that might be something worth tinkering around with, giving a few extra reps with, especially in practice. Is this the kind of guy that can finally bring that Tyreek Hill element to the offense, where Justin Herbert can, I would say, and this is a big part of the Kansas City Chiefs offense, where Justin Herbert can finally force the defense to respect the deep ball. I think that's a big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs offense has been so efficient. That deep ball has consistently, whether or not they have the premium speed or not, which more often than not they do, that part of their offense is executed very, very well. The Chargers, I feel, have been trying to do that. They just not had the weapons. Now they do. And I feel like that Patrick Mahomes upside with Justin Herbert absolutely exists, and the Chargers just gave him the weapons to kind of help him out in that aspect. So being able to hit that deep part of the field, force defenses to play a bit deeper and open up the offense, I would say a lot underneath, is going to be very exciting. Darius Davis is going to be a big part of that, okay? Next up at number 6. I'm sorry if this video goes a little long, guys. This is going to be a big one this season, though, and this is one I think deserves a lot of attention from the fans. Actually, doesn't require that much explanation either. The return of J.C. Jackson. Now, his name's been kind of hitting our news feeds a little bit more lately on Twitter, because he did go out there. I think he was talking with TMZ, and then most recently with team pressers, that he is definitely excited to be back with the team. He's making good progress in terms of his return and his recovery. And I do think we can all officially label ourselves as hopeful that he returns for week 1. I would say there's a pretty good chance of that. The big question is whether or not J.C. Jackson returns to form. And I'm not even talking to form with the Chargers, right? I'm talking to form with the Patriots, because a lot of us were very let down with what we saw from J.C. Jackson, one of the most highly anticipated free agent signings I would say in my history as a Chargers fan. It kind of felt very lackluster in his first few games with the Bolts. He was getting burned deep a lot. He was showing a very, very, tough, maybe lack of understanding of the zone coverage that Brandon Staley was throwing at him. It was really a tough thing to watch as a Chargers fan. That's a lot of money to throw at a corner. It just wasn't working out. Well, there's reasons to be optimistic about this, and this is why he's so high on my list of things I'm hyped about. And it's because J.C. Jackson, that upside still exists. Coming back from injury, that motivation is there. But more, I would say, than anything, is the proof in the pudding that I saw that Brandon Staley and J.C. Jackson were starting to get on the same page, towards the end of his time with the Chargers in 2022. Right before that injury, we saw a lot more man coverage. We saw a lot more use in the slot, where definitely J.C. Jackson does thrive. But we also saw a better understanding from J.C. Jackson in zone coverage that Brandon Staley was trying to execute. And honestly, it was so tragic to see just a few drives before JC went down. It really started to feel like it was clicking. And in Chargers' horrible, destined fashion, JC goes down and we never really get to see that full potential, work itself out through the 2022 season. This season, we have a chance to see that. And I'm very anticipating to see how that works out, because, guys, if JC Jackson works out, if that injury doesn't hinder him too much, if he comes back and he shows us he's that player that the Chargers paid that big bucks to, with that vision of being that lockdown corner, if that works out, this Chargers DB group is probably going to be one of the nastiest in the NFL. And that's why I feel like being able to invest in our excitement of J.C. Jackson is absolutely warranted now. I will say I was very let down, almost even upset about it when he went down this last season, especially with his lack of production. But now that we kind of have a bit of distance between the incident and now, and a better understanding of maybe why he was struggling, and maybe saw evidence of a corner being turned, I think the anticipation is returning for me. So I'm excited for JC. We're all rooting for him. I'm sure every Chargers fan is hoping to see him come back, very minimum, and then definitely hoping that he steps up to the plate as the Chargers cornerback 1 eventually. Because as of right now, it's Asante Samuel. I think it's very protected in terms of that role for him. So next up, at number 5, oh, baby. This is a big one, Chargers fans. This is one that, again, I see getting swept under the rug a lot, and it's one that I need Chargers fans to start paying attention to right now. It's the return of Rashawn Slater. Slater is back, and this is a big, big deal, especially with what the Chargers have done on offense this season, right? They have just injected this offense with speed. When you do that, and you have an anchor at left tackle, more often than not, you're going to give yourself a way better chance at executing those plays. Rashawn Slater is exactly the kind of player the Chargers need to unlock that potential. This is huge, guys. This is big. Rashawn Slater individually is the kind of player that almost features himself as a part of the offensive system, right? The scheme, the plan of attack, if you will, on offense, because the Chargers, their coaches, Justin Herbert, they can count on that time from the left side from Rashawn Slater because of how good he is. And that allows the Chargers to try some more daring things in terms of the deep ball, some more daring things in terms of maybe rollouts, of play action, et cetera, et cetera. Those things are only possible with the time allotted from the left side. And of course, that's not always going to be available. Like we saw last season, Jamari Sawyer stepping in. He did a great job, but he's still not Rashawn Slater. Having him back, guys, again, you take a big chunk of that, that playbook that the Chargers weren't able to execute on last season, it's back on the table. The Chargers' deep threat ability, back on the table. You add on top of that Darius Davis, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Guyton. A lot of things are back on the table. In terms of what Chargers fans have been hoping to see from this offense, more vertical passing, more utilization of Justin Herbert's big arm, more utilization of whatever speed we have on the roster, Rashawn Slater is the key to unlocking all of that. And I do believe that his return very immediately is going to be felt from the Chargers offense and its fans. Very excited to see Slater back on the field. Very rare do you find yourself with one of those top tier left tackles in the NFL, and there's a big reason why they're some of the highest paid positions in the entirety of the league. Slater being back, very, very big deal. Next up at number 4. Oh my God. This is something I was excited about last season, and again, like in Chargers fashion, it kind of fell apart Well, guess what, baby? We are back this season. The return of Bosa, Mack, and the Thule attack. Now, again, pressure is going to be one of the biggest reasons why a lot of defenses work, right? There's a lot of defensive coordinators that go out there and say, hey, man, we want to do this. We want to have lockdown, coverage. We want to have, our linebackers very involved. We want to be very tough to run against. I think no matter what your defensive system is, whatever your scheme, whatever your style, you're going to need good pass rushing, okay? You're going to need good pressure is what I meant to say. And the Chargers and Brandon Staley made it very obvious that's a big emphasis for them and this team by getting, Khalil Mack to play opposite Joey Bosa. The anticipation, the hype, the excitement leading up to this duo was very real last season. And unfortunately, again, like a lot of the things that we've seen in this list, it really fell through. We saw a bit of a preview of it early in the season, right? You guys remember that first week versus the Raiders? Oh, Derek Carr was running for his life, man. I think we had, 4 or 5 sacks that game. Absolutely incredible. That's the potential we have on the roster if these guys can stay healthy. Now, what the Chargers have gone and done for themselves this season is add an insurance policy, right? By drafting Tuli Tuipulotu to this roster, who I believe is the future opposite Joey Bosa on this team. He's going to be a very, very nice addition. When I mean nice, I mean nice. Tuli leading, college in sacks with 13.5 last season. Now you throw him next to Bosa, Mack, even Morgan Fox. That potential still pretty much exists, right? I think it's very, very exciting to think about all these guys on the field at the same time. But at a very minimum, we've got ourselves a nice insurance policy. Now, the reason I kind of mentioned these guys a little bit earlier was because when you've got yourself a nice pass rush, like Bosa, Mack, Tuli, and we're also going to say Morgan Fox because I think both those guys can play in the interior, it really makes the secondary's job a lot easier. And not just easier, but opens up way more opportunities. Derwin James, the ball hawk out there, right? Play him anywhere on the field. Asante Samuel Jr., Davis, J.C. Jackson. These guys all have upside of being ball hawks, right? Going out there and creating turnovers, interceptions. When you've got a consistent and healthy pass rush, that's when you're going to get the most opportunities to capitalize on something like that. That's when you're going to see more errant throws. That's when you're going to see more throws out of sacks. That's when you're going to see more, under pressure throws that maybe they didn't see that guy back there. And, number 26 has the ball all of a sudden for the Chargers. That is what I think the key to this defense has been all along. And that, I think, is what really helped Brandon Staley with the Rams a couple of seasons back. Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald, of course, that probably helped elevate players like their DBs, right? I think back then it was Troy Hill, and then of course Jalen Ramsey and even John Johnson, right? Those guys were kind of ball hawks out there, and I do believe it was a large due in part to the pressure that was being generated up front. And the Chargers, they have the players to do so. Last season, it didn't work out due to injury. Now they've got 3 really nice premium pass rushers. I would say a potential with Tuli. It's going to be exciting to see how that unfolds. I think, again, with what the Chargers have done in the secondary, with what they've done, especially in the pass rush, I would hope, and we're not going to do a bold takes video for a minute. I think it's going to be a couple of weeks, but it's definitely on the slate. I think we're going to throw an early bold take out there. I'm going to say that this season, the Chargers generate the most interceptions, we'll say turnovers, than they've had in the past 10 seasons. That's what I'm going to say right now. I think this combination, the addition of Tuli, the secondary being as healthy as it is, I think it's absolutely possible. So the pass rush, definitely something to be excited about. Now let's get into the top 3. At number 3, of course, I think a lot of us are anticipating this. I'm very excited to go out there and see number 1 play, and that's going to be Quentin Johnston. And of course, I think there's going to be things that are bigger. I do think Bosa, Mack, and Tuli are going to make a bigger impact. I think Slater's going to make a bigger impact. But in terms of my hype and what's leading the hype train for me right now, I'm very excited to see Quentin Johnston play with Justin Herbert. Did you guys see that video the Chargers posted a couple of days ago of Herbert throwing passes to Quentin Johnston with some of the most ridiculous, high point releases I've seen Justin play with this past couple of seasons, and Quentin going up there and snagging them like they're nothing? I think Kellen Moore, the Chargers, this whole system, they're pushing towards an offense that does that sort of thing, right? The Chargers, Justin Herbert, we've seen a lot of balls patted down, right? Being able to throw, 6 feet above any other player's head, and having players like Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams that can go up there and snag it, that's going to help a lot. That's almost the Madden mentality that we've seen this last season. If you guys play Madden, that's a very popular thing that we see. That's kind of the real-life translation of it. That's going to help the Chargers out a lot. But more than anything, having 3 premium wide receivers is going to be so huge for the Chargers and Justin Herbert, right? You got, of course, Slayer. You've got Mike Williams. You've got Quentin Johnston. All 3 of these guys Very excited to see work, but all three of these guys play such different roles with the team that Justin Herbert, it just feels like the availability is going to be so copious this season that he's going to have a good year. And Quentin Johnston is going to be a very new, exciting addition to this offense that I think Chargers fans haven't seen in a long, long time. Kind of that mix between like a Malcolm Floyd, maybe not as physical, like a Vincent Jackson a little bit too, right? The big physicality is possible, but it's more about that speed. It's more about that availability downfield. The Chargers need to see that. The fans need to see that. And Quentin Johnston brings all those elements to the table. Very excited to see these guys play. If you guys haven't seen it yet, go to the Chargers Twitter. Check out Quentin Johnston running routes, catching passes from Justin Herbert. The fluidity in this man's route running, the fluidity in this man's, break. This guy is going to be such an awesome featured piece of this offense to watch. And again, it's in a crowded wide receiver room. We're going to see this guy get open a lot because of the other threats on the field in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. It's going to be a fun one, man. Chargers fans, we've been through the ringer in terms of maybe not drafting a lot of skill position players for several seasons in the first round, a lot of offensive line. This is one that we can finally start getting excited to see, like, the flashiness from, right? Quentin Johnston's going to be a very, very fun one to witness. All right, at number 2, maybe the most important move the Chargers have made in several seasons, right? At number 2, the thing that I'm most hype about is going to be the addition of this man to the team, Kellen Moore. Now, we've talked a lot about Kellen Moore. We did a whole video on Kellen Moore if you guys want a really deep dive as to why I think he's going to be maybe the Chargers MVP move of the 2023 season. But just on the surface, right, this is what I can tell you why I'm so excited to see this new offense roll out. And it's because, again, Chargers fans, myself, everybody in my chat, everybody on Twitter, we've watched the past couple of seasons with Joe Lombardi and felt maybe a bit sick to our stomachs. Like, we weren't using the superstar, once-in-a-lifetime talent of Justin Herbert be put to good use, right? I think a lot of us were hoping to see more deep passing. Of course, I do believe that was absolutely attempted, maybe just not very well executed. Maybe we didn't have the weapons. But that being said, this dink and dunk offense, this underneath passing, almost exclusive offense, the lack of a run game, it was very tough to watch outside of the big plays that Justin Herbert created himself. Now that we got Kellen Moore, that really has brought such an awesome offense to the Cowboys for several seasons now, I think we're going to see that potential unlock for Justin Herbert even more so. And even more so, I think what's going to turn the table for the Chargers, even more than the deep pass that I know a lot of us are excited to see, it's going to be that run game. I know Kellen Moore values the run tremendously, and it's something that I think flew under the radar very much so even with the Cowboys. The Cowboys very much so known as a passing offense. That running attack really helped open things up for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Now you're talking about a Justin Herbert with Keenan, Mike, Quentin. I think we're going to figure something out. I think we're going to see something change in the run game, whether it be more involvement from Xander, J.K., and Spiller, whether it be a different way of rolling out an Austin Eckler, whether it be a signing of like an Ezekiel Elliott, a Kareem Hunt, whatever. I think we're going to see a big change in the running game. And that's something that I think is very much so going to help a Justin Herbert reach new heights as the Chargers gunslinging quarterback. Because again, we know Kellen Moore is going to be out here wanting to utilize those wide receivers. I got to tell you right now, he's probably super excited to see, Quentin Johnston. He's probably got plans for Darius Davis that would make a lot of us scream, right, in terms of anticipation and excitement. This is something that's going to help the Chargers a lot. And let me remind you how premium of an offensive coordinator the Chargers got. This man was up for a head coaching position, I think year before last, and even last season, with interviews up the wazoo. The Chargers so lucky to see this man with the organization as an OC, one of the best in the entire league, I would have to say, and it's one that I think is going to translate very, very nice for Chargers fans, Chargers team, and Justin Herbert into the future. And finally, to wrap up this video, which again, sorry guys, maybe a little bit long, my number one thing that I'm anticipating this year is going to be, very simply put, Justin Herbert. Okay? And I think, again, as a Chargers fan, this is going to be something that we expect every season. We kind of lead up to the anticipation. We build up maybe a little bit more around Justin every season. We see more execution. We get excited about our starting franchise quarterback, who should be seeing an extension any day now, right? At least, I would say over the summer. One big reason I'm excited about Justin Herbert, for one, again, is that complete offense. I would say maybe the sketchier thing that you're going to see is tight end. And even then, Chargers and Gerald Everett, very, very good tight end. He'll do his job. But now seeing a complete role of wide receivers, especially, right? You got the underneath guy in Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. You got the two deep threats on the outside of Quentin Johnston and Mike Williams. It's going to be very, very nice for Justin Herbert. His job got a lot easier, and it's going to allow him to do even more insane things with this team. He's also facing some horrid secondaries this season. We got the Vegas Raiders twice, who maybe improved a little bit, but let's be honest, it's Justin Herbert versus the Raiders. Tennessee Titans, definitely, unless they get some guys back, is going to be not one of the best secondaries. Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, Miami Dolphins, Baltimore Ravens, all these guys not known for having the best passing defense in the league. Justin Herbert, I think he's got a nice, pocket of games where he's going to have some pretty decent stats put up. I think another 5,000-yard season is definitely on the horizon so long as he can stay on the field, knock on wood. It's going to be an exciting one to watch. A completely fresh offense with Kellen Moore, top shelf weapons with Quentin Johnston and Darius Davis now added to the roster. We finally have that speed, unlocking the big arm. I think it's going to be a very big year for Justin Herbert, but more than anything, I think having a complete, well-rounded, and balanced offense in terms of the run game that I do believe Kellen Moore is going to bring to the table, and having a complete arsenal of weapons is what's going to make Justin Herbert, with that talent that already exists within him, take that next leap. And I do think that by the end of the season, there's going to be a lot of opinions thrown out there about who's the top 3, top 5 quarterbacks in the league. I almost promise you that Justin Herbert's going to be in the conversation for one of the best QBs in the NFL. So Justin Herbert, my number one reason to be excited. Well, again, guys, in the comment section below, let me know some of the things you're excited about. Sorry about the length of the video. Very excited, though, to see the season roll in. And again, we'll have to wait and see how the Chargers are rolling out some of these things that we're kind of speculating on right now, right? The Xander Horvath, the Darius Davis, maybe what Quentin Johnston, Thule. It's very exciting to see how all these unfold. And now that we're into the summer, we're going to see maybe some indications and hints of that through training camp, through pressers, through what they're doing in any of these exercises. This will be a fun time to sit and observe and speculate. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Woo, Kellen Moore, man. He's going to bring the heat this season.